What's up, board game people? I've collected the highs and lows from this week, put them into ChatGPT, and let it write this video. I'm currently asleep, drilling on my keyboard and dreaming about a field full of infinite calyx shelves. So while I'm asleep and can't rant endlessly about bad business practices, let's get to the news. Before I start, I'd like to thank all of my Patreon members for their amazing contributions that help keep this channel growing, independent, and unfiltered. You are all very much appreciated. Live on crowdfunding this week, we have Crystal Age is sitting just under its funding goal and running towards the newly reorganized stretch goals. The creators of Crystal Age are listening to and taking feedback to heart and making changes to ensure the success of the campaign. Crystal Age has 16 days remaining on Kickstarter. The Adventures of Dixon is continuing to struggle to find funding. Sadly, their asking is a bit too much for the offering here. Hopefully they'll regroup and relaunch with a better campaign page at a more reasonable price point. As of now, Dixon has 13 days remaining on Kickstarter. Stonesaga is sitting just shy of the 1.4 million Canadian dollars mark and climbing. With the additions from the stretch goals, this game keeps growing and growing. Up next is an open-ended survival mode that can be played from the first days of a campaign, or can be played to continue your game from a completed campaign. Stonesaga has 9 days left on Kickstarter. Andromeda's Edge only has 3 days remaining on their Gamefound campaign, and they've crossed the $1.3 million mark, and the stretch goals just keep rolling in. Andromeda's Edge has captured imaginations with each new edition, and I'm personally more and more excited to get my hands on it and to try it out. If you're on the fence, look quick. This isn't one you're going to want to miss if you're interested. Finally, Witchbound only has 3 days remaining on Gamefound, and it's just announced a 7th side story for the first season of extra content. There have been several stretch goals and extra offerings added into the project over the last few weeks, and I greatly encourage you to check out this project and the updates to see everything this adventure has to offer. Coming to Gamefound this week, we have Street Fighter V Champion Edition's Legends. And now for some news. An official date has been set for the launch of Maladum Dungeons of Enveron. They'll be hitting Kickstarter on March 15th at 1300 GMT. Maladum is one of my most anticipated games of the year, and builds on the framework used in Core Space to bring battle systems firmly into the fantasy board game world. They're offering the core box, several expansions, and an option to expand the dungeon to 2 floors. Prices have not been confirmed, but the feeling is that it won't be a total wallet buster, even at the all-in. Still, prepare your wallets or your self-control. March is going to be another big month. Hoplomachus, Victorum, and Remastered are now available for order on Chip Theory's Games web store. Several deluxifications are also available, including the Alloy Dice Set, the Premium Health Chips, the Premium Chip Bag, Hero Tracker, and more. The Pledge Manager for Mythwind is temporarily reopening for a very limited time. This is your last chance to fill out the Pledge Manager and get your rewards. Sadly, this week we heard the announcement of Holy Grail Games shutting down. They end 6 years of game making and effective immediately have shuttered operations. They had a hard road leading up to this closure due to COVID delays, the increase in both material and production costs, and many other factors. Sadly, they're leaving backers in the wind with some games still undelivered. They're attempting to find ways to make things right, and if you're affected, you should check your project page for further updates. The first 3 containers of Witcher Old World have set sail for Poland. These containers contain around 60 to 80% of the games bound for Europe. They'll receive them in Poland, pack individual shipments, and get them on their way to backers. The rest of the first batch of games will leave China in the next 2 to 3 weeks. This batch will include games that are shipping from the US distribution center to the US, Canada, and other locations. The holdup is the big box English version that's not quite complete in production yet. They're finishing these up and they'll be added to the next containers to leave. The second batch of language versions will be complete and assembled in March and April, with them shipping from China in May. Teburu has hit us with a great look at the newly designed Teburu Core, which also functions as the dice charger. Initially, it was designed to charge 5 dice at once, but during development they opted for faster dice charging and more reliability, and brought the number of dice down to 3. The core can now accommodate a wide range of differing dice sizes, such as the D10 that will be needed for Milan Uprising. The core is also detachable, so it can be transferred to different boards should the need arise. Milan Uprising and the Bad Karmas use the same board, but in the future, games may opt for smaller or larger boards, and this helps to future-proof the Teburu a bit. In news for the Bad Karmas, the art development is wrapping up their final tasks. They've released a second pack of STL files for more print-it-yourself terrain as well. I say keep it coming. These models look great and should be exciting to see on the game board. I would love to see the cardboard terrain pieces that match up to the 3D terrain so I could use them as a reference for painting. They leave us with a look at the in-progress chart showing electronic production sitting at 40%, the molds and tooling process for the miniatures in progress. The last big one I see is the quality assurance, which generally takes some time, and it's only sitting at 10% currently. Frosthaven is back again with another shipping update. Shipping for the US is 93% done, leaving me and a few others in the last 7% still waiting. They aren't really sure when they're going to be done shipping within the US. In Canada, weekly exports continue from the US, and they have 2 to 3 weeks of shipments remaining. In Europe and the rest of the world, they've passed the 50% mark and should hit 65 to 75% by the end of the month. In the UK, they're awaiting the last container to finish shipping out the last 1,000 plus shipments. In the Oceanic region, LaserRock's inserts are causing a massive delay, and they're considering split shipment. The inserts will likely not arrive until the end of March. In Asia and the South Pacific, inserts are held up at customs, but once they arrive, shipments are expected to go quickly. Pre-orders will start shipping as soon as fulfillment for the region they are ordered in is complete. 2 new sets have been announced for Marvel Crisis Protocol this week. The Wakanda Affiliation Pack running $59.99 and getting you 4 Wakanda heroes to add to the fray, and the Emma Frost and Psylocke Pack running $39.99. Final charge attempts are happening for League of Dungeoneers. The staff at Gameland have returned to work and 50 metric tons of gaming goodness are being produced and packed. They found a missing component with a production sample and the sheet containing it has been reprinted. They're hoping to have ships on the water soon, and port ETAs will be announced as soon as they know. Warhammer Imperium has expanded from the initially planned 80 issues to 90 issues. Included in these issues will be some number of Paragon warsuits, the Redemptor Dreadnought, Lord Inquisitor Kyria Draxus, Skitari Marshal, Illuminor Cesros, and a Hexmark Destroyer. Mass production of the miniatures for Resident Evil is now underway. The miniatures shown are the same color but perceived differences because of lighting. The updated timeline presented previously is still in effect and they plan to fulfill beginning in late July or early August. The boss spotlight for this update is shining brightly on Neptune, who, while an unlikely foe, is a deadly one and one of my favorite miniatures. Neptune is a behemoth that will rip into you with moves such as Feeding Frenzy, Drag Below, Whirlpool, Submerge, and Violent Thrash. The latest production update for Skyrise shows us the wax proofs for many of the buildings in the game. These are looking great, but I worry some of the softer details will be lost in the transfer to the mold and to plastic. They're still working on the wash process for the pieces. The box prototype should be on the way to them soon, and they're close to having a solution for the 3D island frames that we should be seeing very soon. SAS Rogue Regiment is in testing and making significant strides. The pledge manager remains open and about 83% of pledges are in. The updated chart is showing more of the items in a files being prepared or an in layout status. It looks like things are humming right along. We get some close-ups of the Support Willys Jeep and the Hawker Typhoon, and finally a wonderful shot of the early prototype of the game. The Oathsworn reprint campaign has posted a promising update showing off the final production samples of many of the quality of life items that were added with this campaign, and they're looking immaculate. They did a beautiful job on the new dice. The dice bags and save bags are looking amazing as well. Production has started and millions of components are being worked on. We got some nice shots of the production in progress and a report on the Pledge Manager. 95% of pledges are complete and the Pledge Manager will stay open through February and likely March as well, but please get them finished as soon as possible. Batman Gotham City Chronicles is back to business now that the factories have reopened. They're going through the resin casting phase with the miniatures to work out any problems there. The revised rule and skill books are now completed and are being proofed. Testing for New Eden and Gotham City in Flames is complete and translation and layout is underway. The English version of the solo co-op mode is complete and laid out. They're laying out scenarios from Season 1 and 2 now, and the translation for the French version are underway. We show off some amazing shots of a fully painted Kickstarter all-in from Season 1 and 2, done by Scarhand Painting. For the RPG, the rulebook is still being proofed and is about 50% laid out. The adventure book sits about the same. The guide to Gotham City has been updated and around 40% has been translated, with 25% of it laid out. The next update will have an even closer look into the Deck of Ways. A relaunching of the Thinning Veil is planned for March or sometime shortly thereafter. They've taken all the feedback into advisement, and it should be interesting to see what they've come back to the table with. Last go around, they fell about 70,000 short of the funding before canceling, but this time that goal will hopefully be lower and the descriptions on the page shored up. I'll be keeping my eyes out for more news on the relaunch. One Marvel Champions pack is headed to retail on the 24th. The Rogue Hero pack will be priced at $16.99. Lawyer Up Season 2 has posted the Season 2 rulebook for feedback and given us an updated timeline for the project that shows pre-production copies arriving in March, production dates getting set in April, production in May, and fulfillment in the July to September area. They also shared their next game, which launched on Kickstarter and is already funded, Set a Watch Forsaken Isles. A delay of 1 to 4 months has been announced for Malhya Lands of Legend. This shifts delivery from summer of 2023 to quarter 3 or quarter 4 of 2023. Now that the bad news is out of the way, the progress is coming along nicely. The booklet chart is showing all items now in progress or complete, with the majority already having been completed. The delay is being caused by translation efforts which became more extensive than first thought and required fully laid out booklets, not raw text to work from. This caused them to have to bring in more help, but even with that, the project is slowed down. This is a necessary delay, and I for one am glad to see them taking their time to get this right. They then somewhat reluctantly announced their next project, From the Moon, which will be launching on March the 7th on Kickstarter. It's a resource management worker placement game for 1 to 4 players. More on From the Moon in our upcoming crowdfunding campaigns video for March. A very quick update from the Marvel Zombies campaign shows off FAQ 1.0, which is a one-page sheet answering 7 of your possible questions about the game and mechanics. This week I have another campaign guide and a little wider variety of videos coming, along with the weekly news video. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already so you don't miss anything. Also, remember our Discord is linked in the video description if you'd like to join in on the conversation. If you happen to have $1 or $2 laying around, check out my Patreon page, also linked in the video description. I'm working towards getting a wireless mic system for traveling, interviews, and more, and every dollar helps. Thank you to everyone watching and commenting. Have a great week, and let me know what you're playing this week in the comments.